Well, it is fantastic to be with you guys today. It's so great to see you. If you're here hanging out in the room with us or you're watching online or catching up later, we're so thankful that you've chosen to take part of your week to worship and learn along with us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing or places you could be, and it's so great that you've decided to be here, and we're thankful we get to do this together each and every week. My name's Corey, and I have the honor and privilege of being the lead pastor here at GFC, and this is week 2 of a conversation we started last week called Who, and the idea is this: it's a search for identity, and there's a certain way we're going to do that, and I'll kind of lay that out in a second, and I'll kind of remind you of where we were last week, or let you know where we were if you missed last week. But first things first, I need to remind us of one more thing and kind of let you guys know some plans that are being made. I want to do an impromptu poll just to kind of see where we're at in the room. I think there's probably a handful of people that are already in this boat. How many of you have already started decorating for Christmas? Anybody? I got a couple of hands. All right, cool. So those of us with Christmas spirit have our hands raised, okay? And those of us who haven't, it's okay. We'll get there, all right? So here's the thing. We've already started thinking about Christmas. It's going to be here before you know it. So we wanted to give you kind of an update and just let you know Christmas Eve this year, we will be right here, December 25th, which 24th, sorry, not 25th. Stay home on the 25th. But 24th will be here at 4 p.m. So Christmas Eve service right here at GFC will be at 4 p.m. It's going to be an awesome time. If you haven't been here for Christmas Eve before, it's a ton of fun. We'll have snacks. We'll have a gift for the kids. We'll have a story for the kids. By the way, we always have a photo booth too. I'm just saying this year's photo booth, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to come find out. It's going to be the best photo booth I think we've ever had, okay? So I'm just letting you know. If you're interested, you're going to have to show up and find out for that, okay? So plan to be here. Also a great time to invite a friend or family member if they're not connected to church or they only come to church sometimes. Just already start inviting them. Just letting them know, hey, by the way, we've got this awesome Christmas thing coming. Just let them know and let them invite them to join you. And then we will let you know on Sunday, December 28th, we've done this a couple years. We're going to be online only. So we're going to take a break that Sunday. It's a great opportunity for us to just say, hey, we're not going to schedule anybody. You can, we know there's a lot of family things going on. People travel, all that kind of stuff. And if you're like, I really want to go to church that day, here's what I would love for you to do. Go to a friend's church. Talk to them about where you serve, if you serve in a certain area, and learn something new. And then come back and be like, hey, this is something I learned, and it was really great, and let us know about it, all right? So we'll be online. We'll have an online service that day, so you can hang out at home and watch if you want, or you can go visit somewhere else. Either way, it will be awesome for you. So we'll have more details coming about both those things and kind of let you know, but we wanted you to be prepared and already starting to look forward to Christmas, so that's where we're at, all right? So let's begin to dive into our conversation today. I want to let you know and remind you about the follow along. So if you're new with us, we have all the verses and all the notes will be up on the screen, but it's also online. All of our announcements are also online, so if you scan that QR code or just go to our website, they will be there for you. So as we've had this conversation, we started it last week, like I said, about who and the search for identity. This is kind of the premise we've started with, that everyone searches for their identity over time. We talked about some of these questions last week, right? When you're a kid and you have to go to a new space, you start at a new school or something like that, you're going to ask, who do I fit in with? Who are the friends I'm going to hang out with at recess? Who am I going to sit at the lunch table with, right? Who's going to be my buddy when I need it? And that can overflow into adult life too when you start a new job or you go to a new church or something like that, right? There's certain areas where you're going to want to connect with people and kind of figure that out. There's also moments where you're just going to ask, who can I trust? Who's someone that when I need them, they're going to show up. They're going to be my friend and they're going to help me through life and I'm going to process that. And then at some point, you're also probably going to ask, who do I want to be? And you're going to make decisions based on where you want to be in the future, what type of marriage you want to have or where you want to live or what kind of job you want to do. And all of those questions moving through life, we have to answer those questions and kind of process them. And we all do it whether we're thinking about it or not. And then eventually, we're probably going to get to a place in life where we can look back and go, do I actually like the choices I made? Have I gotten to the place where I'm at? And that will influence maybe how you look into the future. And then we said this as well, and I think this is true. I think this is actually true for more people than just followers of Jesus. But I said it this way, as followers of Jesus, we cannot answer the question of identity without answering questions about God. I think particularly people that follow Jesus take this into account. I don't know that people that don't follow Jesus, I don't know that they take it into account, but I think they make some very distinct choices on what they believe about God in their identity. And so everyone has to start from a framework of, do I believe in God? Do I not believe in God? And so that's going to influence the choices they make and how they move through life. And if they don't believe in God, they're going to make certain choices. They're going to go a certain direction. They're going to believe certain things. If you do believe in God, whether it's Jesus or somebody else, you're going to make certain decisions and go a certain way. And so when we think about this from a Christian perspective, we would say that we as followers of Jesus, if we are followers of Jesus, we can't answer this question or have a true understanding of identity without answering some difficult and interesting questions about God. And so the question today is, can we know God? Last week we talked about, can we believe in God? Like, is that even logical? And so if you missed that conversation, you can go back and watch that or connect with that, but this is the conversation for today. I forgot to mention this last week, but I think it's helpful to just kind of like lay out here. The way that I got to kind of this idea of this conversation is we had a national conference for our fellowship that took place in Lidditz over the summer. And there was a session that they were doing, and it was all about how you disciple your family or disciple your kids and how that works. And the speaker boiled it down to two things. He said, if you get this right, if it works well, you're going to teach people who God is and who they are in light of who God is. And so that's kind of the framework we're coming from. We're starting this conversation and saying, who is God? Is God real? Can we believe that? And how can we know him? Can we know him at all? And then we're going to shift next week. We're going to talk about Jesus. And then the next couple weeks, we're going to shift and we're going to talk about us. And what does God actually want from us in light of who he is? And so my hope is that we kind of can answer some of these questions and dig into this stuff and have an understanding of who we are based on who God is. So can we know God? This is a big question that many people can fall on different kind of scales on. Like there's kind of like a spectrum of people that would fall in different places. There are people that believe wholeheartedly there is God and that we can know him and that we understand him and that we believe we can know everything about him. There's other people that would be far on the other side that would say we can't know God at all. There's no God at all. We can't know him. It's just not possible. And everyone kind of falls somewhere on that spectrum, kind of where they would figure out where they'd be. And there's some people that say, right, they would say, I believe there is a God. I believe that we didn't get here by accident, that he created us, but they would say we can't know anything about him. We can't see him. We can't touch him. We can't talk to him. We don't know anything. So I'm just going to kind of live my life in this space and just kind of work out my days and then kind of assume some certain things and then eventually maybe we'll figure it out. And so there's a large kind of conversation around this and people fall on different areas of this spectrum, and that's what I want to dig into today. One of the things that I will say fairly often, it sounds like a cop-out answer, but I don't think it is, and this is what I will often say, is that if we could understand everything about God, we would be God. We actually want God to be unreachable in certain aspects. If we could understand everything about him, if we could figure out every decision he made, if we could understand how he controls everything, if we could figure out how he created everything, that would actually be a problem for us. Because if we would understand too much of what's going on, that levels us up to a place that we actually can't be, because we can't understand those things. And so when we look at this and we think through this conversation about God, that we will kind of walk this through. I think there are very deep things and things we can understand about God, but we're not going to be able to understand everything. It's actually not possible, and it's actually one of the things that makes God God and the concept of God a reality. I want to start this conversation in the Old Testament. We're going to go to Jeremiah chapter 9, and we're going to go to verses 23 to 24. And this is, Jeremiah's writing this, but God is saying this to him, and he's kind of relaying the information. So it says this. This is what the Lord says. Don't let the wise boast in their wisdom, or the powerful boast in their power. For the rich boast in their riches, or the rich boast in their riches. But those who wish to boast should boast in this alone, that they truly know me and understand that I am the Lord who demonstrates unfailing love and who brings justice and righteousness to the earth, and that I delight in these things. I, the Lord, have spoken. There's two things I want to point out about this, in this just a couple of verses. Number one, it's very interesting to me that this was written thousands of years ago. So this is, if you're not familiar with kind of the timeline of Scripture, Jeremiah is hundreds of years before Jesus. Okay, so we've got Jesus, and kind of we look at the New Testament, and we love on this side of that. This is way before Jesus, and God's writing this out, and he's talking to Jeremiah, and he's laying this out for the people. And what are the things he points to? He points to things like wisdom and power and riches. You go back thousands of years, guess what they're focused on, just like it's what we're focused on today, right? We think about leveling up in power all the time. We want to move our way up the org chart. We want to get the promotion, or we want to whatever, right? We want to gain more power in that situation. We want to gain more wisdom. We want to go back to school or be, and by the way, none of these things are necessarily bad. It's just how you look at them, right? But we want to be able to be smarter and gain in our knowledge and our wisdom. And sometimes it's really interesting when we're able to do that. And one of these tropes, I don't know if it's true. I've never really met that many people from Harvard. But one of the things that people say, like, you always know somebody who went to Harvard because the first thing they'll tell you is that they went to Harvard, right? Sorry if you went to Harvard. I'm not dunking on you. I'm just saying. People say that, right? I did not go to Harvard, okay? So we think about it in wisdom, and then we think about it in riches. We want to gain that money. We want to be secure. We want to have the bank account that's got more money than less money, right? We think about this. This is thousands of years ago, and God's laying this out, and it's the same things we would think about today. It's the same things that we would be tempted to boast about, is how smart we are, or how rich we are, or how much power we have. And yet what he says is, don't boast about those things. And even what's interesting too is one of those things is a biblical thing, right? There's a whole book of the Bible on wisdom. And God still says, don't boast on those. But he says this, but those who wish to boast should boast in this alone, that they truly know me and understand that I am the Lord who demonstrates unfailing love and who brings justice and righteousness to the earth, and that I delight in these things. I, the Lord, have spoken. Here's the first thing I want us to understand, is that our knowledge and relationship with God is more valuable than any wealth, wisdom, or power. The question is, do we believe that or not? Do we really think that when we think about what we want to be, we want to have overflowing out of us, or what we want to have, we could boast about, or what we want to be proficient in? Many of us would be like, yes, I want to be a wise person, that's good, or I want to make sure I'm moving my way up in the world, or I want to make sure I have enough money. Like, we would all think that way. But do we believe that our knowledge and relationship with God is actually more valuable than those three things? And when we make decisions in life, is that actually the way that we make those decisions? Do we let this idea, what Jeremiah has written for us, to kind of move us to the place where we would say that the things I'm going to pursue are the knowledge and relationship with God over power and riches and wisdom? And so what I want to do today is I want to kind of lay this out from two different perspectives. I want to actually talk about, first of all, the ways that we are unlike God, and then ways that we are like God and how we can relate to him. And then we'll kind of wrap it up at the end and see how we can actually grow in our knowledge and relationship of him in a tangible way. So first question is this: in what ways are we unlike God? I'm going to lay out three ways that we are unlike God to start the conversation. So here's the first thing I would say: that God is eternal. This is one of these things that we can't really wrap our mind around. Here's what I mean by that. It is true that you and I will live on after we die on this earth, right? We have spirit that will move forward, and we either spend the rest of eternity with God or without God. That's the reality, right? So we will, from this moment forward, we will live on through eternity. However, here's what we were not. We were not there before the world began. And so when you start to think about it, we go, okay, we think back to the beginning of the world, and we can go back to Genesis. We can kind of think about, okay, so God created everything, and then you go, but what was before that? That's where my brain starts to hurt, right? Because it's hard. It's hard to figure out. So God was there, but there was nothing. And like, how does he, but who started him? And this is where we get to the point where you just go, I'm not God. I don't understand. And that's actually a positive thing. But he was there before the beginning of time. If we would go just briefly to Revelation 8. By the way, Mark, I apologize. There are so many verses in today's conversation, okay? So we're going to bounce around a lot, just to let you guys know too. So Revelation 1:8, this is what it says. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, says the Lord God. I am the one who is, who always was, and who is still to come, the Almighty One. None of us can make that claim. And if you hear someone make that claim, run, right? They're not telling the truth. They're kind of crazy. It's not true, right? So it says, I'm the beginning and the end. How do you do both? There's a beginning and there's the end of every story. There's a beginning and the end of every life. Not for God. It says, I am the one who is, who always was, again, can't claim that, and who is still to come. So he's been there, he is now, and he's going to be. It's one of those things we can't wrap our minds around it. But God is outside of all time and space and energy and all of it. He is outside of all of it, but he is also in all of it and understanding all of it and creating all of it. And it's just crazy to even try and wrap your mind around, right? So he is eternal. We are not. We will live on into eternity, right? We will have eternal life, but We were not there from the beginning. Are not outside of these things, but God is. Here's the second thing I want us to know about God is that God is unchanging. You know, I would hope if we had the opportunity to pull up a picture of you as a baby and we would look at a picture of you now, they would be very different, right? In fact, I was just thinking this through with our 5-month-old Logan. If you look at a picture like right after he was born and you look at him today, he's massive differences, right? Incredible. And just in 5 months, he is very large now. He's also very smiley and he's happy. He makes facial expressions and all those things, right? It's just, there's massive differences. And over the course of time, we will change. We don't stay the same. We grow older and we get taller, we get short, we lose weight, we gain weight, all those things. We change all the time. God actually doesn't do that. And in Psalm 102, verses 25 to 27, this is what it says. Long ago you laid the foundations of the earth and made the heavens with your hands. They will perish, but you remain forever. They will wear out like old clothing. You will change them like a garment and discard them. But you are always the same. You will live forever. So even the psalmist says, things are going to wear out. Like the world around us is wears out. Like you have to buy new shoes. You have to buy new clothes. I remember in college I had a pair of white Chuck Taylors that I wore almost every day until I literally wore through the bottom of the sole of the shoe. And I went outside in the rain one day and I didn't realize it and my foot was getting wet. And I'm like, there's a hole in the bottom of my shoe, right? They just wear out. And things change over time. And I was actually made aware of something earlier this week that I think is a great illustration of this. Ron, I apologize because you didn't know I was going to bring this up, but Elta gave me permission. If you didn't know, Ron and Elta celebrated 50 years of being married yesterday, which is fantastic. So Elta gave me pictures, okay? So there's pictures that we're going to put up on the screen. Ron, I apologize. So this is from their wedding day is on the left, and I'm assuming the picture on the right was like the week after you guys got married or so, like right after. So there's a few things that are different. Elta, you look exactly the same. Ron, you're a little different. And so hair's different, mustache different. The interesting thing is some of the styles are coming back, but very different, like the white tux and everything, right? Kind of fun things. And you can kind of look through history and just see how people change, how styles change, how things are different, right? And we see this over time. And many of us, like I said before, whether it's a baby picture or not, we would have maybe pictures like this if you've been married a long time or even just in a relationship for a good amount of time. You just see how we expect things to change. We expect to look different. We expect clothing to look different. All of that stuff is different, and that's how we understand it. But God is not changing. If we were able to take a picture of God as he is, which would be impossible, but he would be the same God yesterday, today, and forever. He is not changing. What he decides, what he wants, what he does is always consistent. He is a consistent God who never, ever changes. And so God is eternal. God is unchanging. And this is the third thing I want us to understand, that God is omnipresent. You might say, well, what in the world does that mean? We're going to look at Psalm 139 to help us understand. Psalm 139, verses 7 through 10 says this. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me, and your strength will support me. We think about this in kind of two ways, maybe. I think there are times where we actually want God to be very close to us, where we are hoping, no matter where we are, whether it's in despair or in happiness or however you want to think about it, the dire situation, a good situation, all that, we want God to be close to us. And this verse points to the fact that he is. But there's also moments in life where maybe we actually want to run from God. I think of Jonah, right? Jonah, if you don't know the story, God says, go to Nineveh and tell the people of Nineveh about me. And Jonah's like, nope, not going to happen. He goes, I don't like those people. I don't want them to follow you. And so he gets on a boat and goes the other direction. All kinds of problems ensue from there, right? And so there's a storm and he gets thrown overboard and he ends up in the belly of a fish for 3 days. And even there, God is with him, which is crazy to think about. And so even though we are restricted to time and place and how we understand that, we can't be in multiple places at once and we can't be able to know everything or understand every person, God can do all of those things. And even when we want to try and get away from God, this is the truth, that even if you want to hide from God, there is nowhere you can go to lose his presence, which sometimes could be frustrating. You might just be like, I don't want anything to do with God. I want him to leave me alone. I don't want anything. And people come and pray, like, can I pray for you? You're like, no, I actually don't want anything to do with it, right? There's just moments where maybe you feel that way, but you can't get away. It's actually impossible. And that God, no matter where we go, no matter where we try and be, whether it's up deep in the ocean or way up high on an airplane, like it doesn't matter. He is always there, no matter where we are. And so these are deep understandings of truth that we can't completely wrap our minds around, but this is how God is different. In all of these ways, the omnipresence, the unchanging, the eternal, we want him to be different in these ways. We want to be able to look at him and say, I get that you are not the same as me. And that's a really positive thing to understand. But now I want to shift gears, and I want to ask this question: in what ways are we like God? The first way I would say is that we are spiritual. I've had different conversations over the last couple of months of some things that are just kind of happening in church world and what we're seeing in trends of just like what's happening in churches right now. And the idea of spirituality, or that just we are spiritual beings, is very much on the rise. There's more and more conversation happening, particularly amongst younger generations, about the fact that we are not just nothing. If you go back about 15 years ago, it seemed like this new understanding of atheism was really on the rise. That has stopped, and it has gone the other way to just kind of say, maybe they don't know what's going on, or like we're not sure what we believe or what we don't believe. But the idea of spirituality, that we are not just material people, but there's a spirituality to us, is very much on the rise. And obviously, as people that are followers of Jesus and we believe in God, that we would believe this is true. And Scripture speaks to this. In Romans 8:15-16, this is how Paul lays it out. He says, so you have not received a spirit that makes you fearful slaves. Instead, you received God's Spirit when he adopted you as his own children. Now we call him Abba, Father, for his Spirit joins with our spirit to affirm we are God's children. This gives us a very important truth and understanding from this verse. Everyone has a spirit. Whether they are followers of Jesus, whether they believe in God or not, there is a spirit that is within them. That's the reality. And so what happens is when we connect with God and we decide to follow Jesus, Paul says that his Spirit, or the Holy Spirit is the way we would think about it, joins with our spirit to affirm that we're his children. It's this idea of adoption. And so when we decide to follow Jesus, there is a connection that's made within our spirit to God's Spirit that cannot be broken. And so we have this in common. We have this spiritual connection with God. It's why there are times when we desire to be connected spiritually with people. In fact, I just think this is true, that our spirit is not material. That's the case, right? We can't see it. We can't touch it or anything like that. But it drives our decisions and our desires in material ways. Let me give you an example of this. Maybe you have been in a situation where it's been kind of life or death. Like maybe there was a car accident that you were part of, or you thought there was going to be a car accident, or there's something going on, or maybe you've just been around someone when they heard about bad news or they whatever. And a lot of times what starts to happen is the words that come out of their mouth, God is often a part of that conversation, isn't he? Because all of a sudden we get to a point where our mortality is in question, or what's going on, or what we like, or what we want, or what we're experiencing is different. And we all of a sudden have this quick desire, and everyone does this, to reach outside of our material self and say, I'm appealing to something higher than me. I need, if there's someone out there, if there's something out there that's going to help me, I need to reach out to them right then. It is a knee-jerk reaction to cry out to God in desperate situations. And whether people believe in God or not, they do it all the time. And it drives us in a much less crazy way, or however you want to say it. Like, we also have this desire where if you are a follower of Jesus, there should be moments where you desire to be with God's people, where you desire to be in a room where there's going to be singing done with God. It's one of the reasons I wasn't able to go to Momentum Youth Conference. If you haven't heard of that, it's a youth conference that our fellowship puts on. I wasn't able to go this last year because we had Logan, but it's one of the reasons that I love going to that space. I'll tell you right now, where Momentum is, it's in a town called Marion, Indiana. If you were just driving by Marion, Indiana, there is no reason that you would ever think that's where you would find God, okay? It is empty. There is nothing. They have a Walmart. That's about it, okay? So it's just, and a college. That's all that's there, right? You could just drive by, like, all right, I'm just going to keep going. There's no reason. But when Momentum happens and we've got a room of 2,500 teenagers and adults all deciding to worship God together, it's a crazy spot. And God shows up in the midst of that. And there's just a desire to see that happen, to be a part of it, to experience it. And it draws us into places. It should draw us into places where we're like, I just want that. I want to be there. I don't need to be the main event. I just want to be present in the space. And so even if we don't believe in God, that our spirituality often drives us to make decisions or do things. Even if we do believe in God, it should move us to make decisions and have certain desires. So we are spiritual. We are also loving. Every person, no matter who you are, desires to be loved and to show love. You want someone that's going to celebrate your birthday. You want someone that's going to be excited to see you. You want someone that when you want to go to a concert or a ball game or something, you want to have someone that you're like, I know I can call them and they'll go with me, right? We want friends and we want those relationships to be connected to other people. We also want to show love to other people. Some of you, maybe you're in this boat. Maybe you've already got the perfect Christmas present picked out for somebody and you're like, I cannot wait to give it to them, right? It's not for you, it's for them. But you're so excited to just give them that gift. You want to be the one that on Christmas Day, they see it and they light up and they're so excited. You want to show them love. All of this is because God has built this into us. In 1 John 4, verses 7 through 8, this is what it says. Dear friends, let us continue to love one another, for love comes from God. Anyone who loves is a child of God and knows God, but anyone who does not love does not know God, for God is love. So the reality of love in our lives is actually a pointing to who God is and what he has imprinted on our lives. We all desire this. We want it for ourselves. We want to show it to other people. And what John tells us is that the way we actually show that we're connected to God is by loving other people. He says if you don't know God, you're not going to show love. You're not going to be loving. Now, everyone's going to decide how that works out, and everyone's going to, like we said, it is a desire that we show love. But ultimately, there's a point where we have to make decisions to love other people when it's not convenient for us. When we're not going to feel good about loving the other person. We're not going to feel good because that person shows us love. But we actually have to love them no matter what. And that's what God did for us. That's actually the deepest form of love, is when we do love people and we get nothing out of it. It actually hurts us when we love them because it's something that we don't want to do, or it's not helpful to us, but it's what's best for them, and so we do it anyway. And God did that for us, and so we are loving because God is loving. And then the third thing is that we are blessed. This one's going to be a little bit more, we have to extrapolate this one out, but I think you're going to get it. I remember this verse, Zephaniah 3:17 is where we're going to go next. The camp that I grew up at was called Camp Sacanac. That's where I would go every summer. And this is the theme verse. And so I think I have it memorized in like King James. It's one of the only verses I know in King James. But this is what it is in the NLT. It says, for the Lord your God is among you. Just like pause on that sentence. The Lord your God is among you. Now, this is Old Testament. This is conversation with the Israelites, right? It's all different. But we know that this is true because if we fast forward and we look at Jesus coming to earth and then him giving us the Spirit, right? This theme works its way through Scripture. This is not something that's just for Zephaniah or just in the Old Testament. God is among us. That's a crazy thing to think. That when we are just out and about and things are going on, God's there. Like he is not just sitting on some throne up on a cloud somewhere totally disconnected from what's going on. He is amongst us. And so the idea at the camp when I was a kid was when we're here, when we're thinking about being at camp and being a part of this, right? Like God is here. That was the point they were driving home. He says he is a mighty Savior. He will take delight in you with gladness. With his love, he will calm all your fears. He will rejoice over you with joyful songs. Just think about those two things. He will take delight in you with gladness. there's a lot of times where we feel like God is not delighted in us. And we honestly, just be honest, right? We give him a lot of reasons not to be delighted in us. We fall short, we sin, we do things we shouldn't do. But his desire is to delight in us. And then he says this, right? With his love, he'll call us. He will rejoice over you with joyful songs. This is the way God is desiring to interact with us. This is what he wants, is to be delighting in us and to rejoice over us. And then if we fast forward into the New Testament, John 15, verses 9 through 11 says this, I have loved you even as the Father has loved me. This is Jesus talking. Remain in my love. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love. Just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love, I have told you these things so that you will be filled with joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. He says, I want to tell you these things because I want you to be joyful. I want your life to be full. That's why I want you to know all of this information. And when I give you this information, if I do give you this joy that I have, he says, your joy will overflow. Let's go back to Jeremiah for a minute. We would be tempted to think that when our joy is going to overflow is when we have all the wisdom and the power and the riches. Wrong. That's not when our joy overflows. Those things can maybe overflow, and they might do some good things for us in life, but it's not the crux of the matter. It's not the place where we're supposed to find ourselves. What Jesus says is, I want to give you this joy, and I want that joy to then overflow when you have the joy that I give you. When we think about that, we think about what Zephaniah says and then what Jesus says, and this idea that God would be excited. He would want to love us and rejoice over us and be delighted in us. He's not a God sitting up there waiting to just do what's wrong or take care of it, like make us feel bad for what we did wrong. He's not pointing fingers. He's not that God. He wants to delight in the relationship with us, and he wants us to then do the same through our joy in him. I think the best way to understand this is that our relationship with God is at its best when we are delighted with one another. Those of us that are married, we know this is true, that our relationship is in the best space when we are delighted with one another. When whoever's at home is excited when the other person gets home. When everyone's excited, when you're going to go on a date night or something like that, and you're like, we're both excited to go do this thing, or we're going to go to a party and we're both excited to go there, and we're happy to spend time with one another, and it's good, and we are delighted in one another. And if we're not delighted in one another because one of us said something or one of us did something, then the relationship struggles, right? Then we're in a place, we got to fix it, we got to put it back together, whatever that looks like. But our relationship with God, this is the idea that God doesn't just want to be excited and delight and be joyful over us. He wants to give us that joy so that we have joy in him. And it creates this circular thing where we get to bless each other. In fact, when we obey God, when we do what he's asked us to do, it blesses him. Just like those of us who have kids that when they listen and they understand and they do what we're asking them to do, it actually brings us joy. It makes us happy. Some of us are like, that could happen more often, right? It blesses us. And it actually then blesses them because then we're excited and we tell them we're proud of them and we're excited for them and this was good for them. And then they feel good and they feel happy. You see how that just like it goes around and around. We bless one another when that happens. This is the same way that we should be in a relationship with God. And we get to do that. Psalm 103 says, bless the Lord, O my soul. It's basically, think about it this way. I want the decisions and the things that drive my heart and the decisions I make in life to bless God. We have the opportunity to do that and then find joy in him. It's a relationship. It's not just transactional. It's a connection to him. I think the best way to kind of think about this is that we would do two things. We would allow who God is to make sense of life and allow who God is to make sense of you. I think when we truly understand, and by the way, this wasn't an exhaustive list of the differences and similarities between us and God. If we wanted to do that, I could do a whole semester in a class, right? But we're not doing that. But when we understand these things to be true, we understand God is real and who he is and how he's different and how he's allowed us to be the same as him. It creates a lens through which we see life. And as we walk through our days, as we contemplate what's going on and we get connected to other people, we see all those things, but we see and we make sense of life through the lens of who God is and who he says we are. And then as we think about us and what's going on in our life and what our identity is, we think about that through the lens of who God is and who he created us to be. And it changes the way we see the world. Too often the lens through which we see the world is just us. just how we want to see it, just how we want to process it, just how we want it to be, just how we connect to it or what makes sense or how we want to put it together, all of those things. As followers of Jesus, if we understand this to be the case and we truly know who God is, it changes the lens that we look at this through. Okay, so third question, I got to go faster. So how can we know God? There's a couple verses I want to look at. The first one is 1 John 14. It says this, Jesus told him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. If you had really known me, you would know who my Father is. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Listen, this is the short answer. It's the exact answer. How do we know God? It's through Jesus Christ. That's the way we come to him. There is no other way to God but through him. So we have to recognize and understand Jesus was a real person. He lived a real life. He died. He rose again, and he did all of that to pay for our sins. Why? So that we could be reunited to the Father, and our sin and our shame would not separate us from God anymore, but we could know him. That's the answer. So I'd say this, if you want to know God, but you haven't decided to follow Jesus, that's step number one. Once we take that step, then we have a new understanding and a new connection with God, and this is what it creates in us. In Ephesians 3, verse 12, it says this, because of Christ and our faith in him, we can now come boldly and confidently into God's presence. So we can walk into God's presence boldly and confidently, not arrogantly, but to say, this is a place I'm allowed to be. Let me just give you a brief illustration. This is how somebody said it to me before, and it makes so much sense. If you just imagine that there's a kingdom, right? So there's a king, there's a queen. They've got their whole kingdom set up. They're in charge of whatever's going on. It's a large kingdom, and so they're ruling over everything, and it's all going well, and they have some young kids, right? So they've got little kids that are around the castle, whatever. If any of us, right, were decided, let's just say we're a part of the kingdom, and we decided we wanted to talk to the king, there would be certain ways that we would have to get to him, right? We would have to make an appointment. We'd have to talk to certain people before we nobody just gets to walk up to the king just in the kingdom, right? Just like we couldn't just walk into the White House. You could try. I don't think you're going to make it, and you're going to be in a cop car before you get anywhere, right? It's not going to work. So just like that king, if you just try and walk into that presence, you just try and get an audience with him without talking to anybody, without making an appointment, it's not going to work. You are not allowed into that space, and especially if it's the middle of the night, right? You can't just go run into the king's presence in the middle of the night. That's not the way it works. But who can run to the king in the middle of the night? It's his kids. His kids in the middle of the night, if they need him, they can just run down the hallway, run in and say, I need you. They have access to him that no one else has. They have the ability to have conversation and to reach out to him and to be present with him and to lay their, whatever their issues are, they can lay it at his feet and he will be there and ready to welcome them in. This is the relationship we have with God. Too many of us think about it this way, that we are just outside the kingdom and God just happens to be way over there and we don't have access to him. And that is not true at all. That we can actually, in humility and understanding, we run to him, not in a demanding way where we get to tell him what to do, but as his kids saying, God, I need you. I need you to show up. I need you to help me. I'm scared. I'm worried. I don't know what to do. I just need to be in your presence. And what God says, what Jesus says is because of what Jesus did for us, we have that kind of access to the King. Listen, this is different than any other God that's ever been talked about. I'll just tell you that right now. If you look at the Christian God, you think about Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, you think about that, and then you look at any other God there is, it's a completely different conversation. There is not that reality that because of what God did for us, now we have access to him. Every other equation is whatever you need to do, there's things you need to do in order to get access to him, and if you don't do it, you don't get it. In this understanding and knowing who Jesus is, it's through what he did that gives us access to the Father, and he's the only way for us to get there. But when we know Jesus and we want to run to the Father, we can do so boldly and confidently saying, God, you are my dad, and I need you. And we can go to him whenever we need him. And so in light of this, I have three ways I think that we can kind of focus on this, and so it's very simple. I'm going to give these three ways, and I'm going to ask how you can do these three things, okay? So just think these through. I'll kind of explain them, and you can kind of think about how you need to respond or what needs to maybe change as you think this through. So there's three ways I think we can approach this. Number one, I think we need to humble ourselves. I think we need to give God control. There is a reality in that same situation I just talked it through, right, where he's king and we're not. There's always things that the person who's ruling or the person who's in charge, let's say it's the king, he always knows things that we don't know. He has information that we don't have. He's got responsibility we could never take on. And so there's a moment we just have to go, I have to see the world and myself through the lens of who God is and recognize he's real and he is different than me and I cannot understand everything about him, and that's okay, but I just need to give him control. I need to stop seeing the world through the lens of just me and what I want and what I need to do, and I need to give him control. And in doing so, we will actually know him better. When we allow God to take care of what God can take care of and we do what we're called to do, we actually understand God in a better way. When we try and be God or do the things that only he can do and we try and do them ourselves, we get it wrong. And it moves us further away from him and we don't understand him as well. So we need to let him be God or be the king of our life. Number two, we need to honor Jesus. And what I mean by that is we need to love what he loves. Let me give you an example of this. When you start to date somebody new or you kind of like make a new friend, the conversation always goes to, what do we have in common? Right? What do you like to do? What do you like to watch? How do you like to spend your time? What do you like to read? What are your hobbies? Like all that kind of stuff. And usually what happens is, if you want the relationship to grow, like you enjoy being with this person, whether it's a dating relationship or just a normal friendship, you might step into some things that you actually didn't think you would normally like. And so if they like to watch a certain genre of movies, or there's a movie that they love that you've never seen, you might say, all right, well, next time, let's watch that. Show me why you like it. Or they have a hobby that you've never done before, but they really enjoy it. And so you step into this space of, well, I'm just going to try it. Show me why you like it. And you get to know that person better by doing the things that they love. And I bet if we went around the room, we would, especially in married couples, there would be conversations about the things that when you guys got married or when you started dating, they had an interest or you had an interest and now they love it. And it was one of those things like you never thought you would love, fill in the blank. And now because of that, you do, right? You just learned about it and you get connected in that way. We always learn more about people around us by doing the things that they love as well. And when we look at who Jesus is, there are moments where Jesus is going to tell us to do things, we go, I'm not going to love that. I'm not going to love loving my enemy. I'm not going to love praying for people that make fun of me or beat me down or don't like me. I'm not going to like doing those things. But when Jesus says to do them, if we really love him, we're going to do what he loves to do. I think when we do what he loves to do, we love what he loves. And by the way, we also hate what he hates. We're going to learn more about him. It draws us into a deeper relationship and understanding of who he is. And he will actually reveal himself more to us when we are doing what he loves than if we just focus on doing what we love. And the third thing is this, that we would hunger in our relationship with him. And the way I would say this is that we would turn up his voice. Here's what I mean by that. Think about it relationally again, right? This is all a relationship conversation. So if we think about it relationally again, when we enjoy being with someone, we enjoy talking to them. We enjoy connecting with them, hearing what they think, hearing what their experience was, all of that kind of stuff. And in fact, the best friends we have, we could probably just sit and talk for hours. There's no agenda. There's no rules. There's no thing where we've got scheduled to talk about it. We're just like, hey, let's just have coffee. We'll just sit and talk for a while. We'll have dinner. We'll just sit and talk for a while. We just enjoy hearing and conversing with them. The same thing should be true about God, but I think there should be an intentionality to make sure his voice is turned up in volume and in quantity in our life. So I get when I talk about this, I'm a church nerd. So I listen to more preaching, and I listen to podcasts about church. I listen all the time. But I would encourage you guys, listen to more preaching than just me. This is the great thing about having the internet and podcasts and all that kind of stuff. You can listen to whoever you want. Find someone that's good and listen to them on a regular basis. Listen to podcasts that are talking about spiritual things and pointing you toward Jesus. Listen to music that's talking about and singing about spiritual things and pointing you to Jesus. Turn God's voice up in your life. Don't allow it to just be segmented to certain times. And I'm not saying you only have to listen to things, or you can only listen to things that are pointing you to God. I listen to other music sometimes that's not Christian, right? It's just not. There's other podcasts I listen to that aren't Christian. But they shouldn't overpower the voice of God in my life. His voice should be the most important voice and the loudest voice in my life. And if I love him, if I want to know him and I want to connect with him, his voice is going to be the most important one. And as I go through my day, his voice is going to be the one that I want in every aspect of life, and I want to hear and I want to listen to the most often. If we're going to know him, we have to be in that place. And obviously part of that is also reading your Bible and also just having conversation with him, praying to him, running to him like he is your dad, and connecting those pieces, coming to him boldly and confidently. So we ask the worship team to come back up. We're going to sing one more song. But these are the questions, right? They just have to do with those three things. How do I need to give Jesus control? Am I too much the one who's holding on to things? Am I too much the one who's sitting on the throne? Do I need to just let God be God and understand who he is and get out of the way? How do I need to honor Jesus? Are there things Jesus is calling me to that I've said I don't want to do? I'm not interested. I'm not gifted for that. I don't think I want to do that. But we need to step in those spaces and do what he loves. Be in the spaces he calls us to go so we can learn and grow in our relationship with him. And then how can I hunger for who God is? How do I need to turn his voice up in my life instead of allowing other things to drown out his voice throughout my week and throughout my time? And I would encourage you as we sing this last song, go to him boldly and confidently. Have a conversation and say, God, which one of these things do I need to do? Sometimes people will say, well, I don't hear from God audibly. I don't hear. I don't either. I can honestly say I've literally never heard God's voice out loud to me. I have had strong movements in my spirit going, this is what I know to do. But I've never heard him, right? Not with my ears. But when you start to pray and you start to ask God to show up, or you start to ask God to do these things and move in your heart and your mind to help you understand, it will start to happen. Consistently ask God to do those things. Show you where you need to turn up his voice. Show you where you need to give him control. Just have that conversation with him. If you don't feel it, do it again tomorrow. Ask him the question again. Come to him boldly, confidently. Have that conversation. See where he moves you to go.